Okay, so here's something really surprised me, and it happened just last week. OpenAI, the ChatGPT people, walked out on stage and showed off their own AI chip. Not a rumor, not a leak, an actual piece of silicon they designed themselves. And the part that made me sit up straight isn't just that they did it, it's how fast they pulled it off, and what it might mean for the company that's basically been printing money off this entire AI boom. I'm talking about Nvidia. So if you're into the behind-the-scenes stuff, the hardware war nobody brings up at dinner, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel lives for exactly these moments, and I'd hate for you to miss what's coming next. Alright, let me break this whole thing down for you. What OpenAI actually put on stage. So on June 24th, 2026, OpenAI and Broadcom got together and unveiled a chip called Jalapeno. Yeah, like the pepper. They're calling it an intelligence processor, which is a slick marketing name, but underneath all that, the thing is what engineers call an ASIC. That stands for Application Specific Integrated Circuit, and the short version is it's a chip built to do one job incredibly well instead of doing everything just okay. In this case, that one job is inference. Inference is the part where a trained AI model actually answers your question. Every time you type something into ChatGPT and it replies, that's inference happening. That's the whole reason this chip exists. It was designed around the exact workloads OpenAI runs every day across ChatGPT, Codex, and its API. And here's the detail I keep coming back to. OpenAI designed this thing from a blank slate in about 9 months. Both companies are claiming that's the fastest ASIC development cycle ever pulled off in high-performance chips. And honestly, I believe it because the normal timeline for something like this is 18 to 36 months. They cut it by more than half. How? OpenAI used its own AI models to help design the chip. Let that sink in for a second. They used AI to build the hardware that runs AI. Greg Brockman, OpenAI's president, basically admitted even the leadership was surprised by how much the models sped things along. That feedback loop people have been theorizing about for years just produced real physical silicon, the number that makes Nvidia sweat. Now let's talk about why this matters for the money side, because this is where it gets juicy. The chip is manufactured by TSMC on a 3nm process, and physically it's enormous, somewhere around 840 square millimeters, which is right up against the physical limit of what you can even build. That tells you OpenAI knew exactly what they wanted this thing to do, and built every inch of it for that purpose. But the number that actually matters is this one. Broadcom's CEO Hock Tan said in an interview that early on the chip is showing cost savings of roughly 50% compared to typical AI GPUs. 50%. On top of that, OpenAI says the performance per watt is substantially better than the current state of the art, and they've already got engineering samples running real workloads in the lab, including one of their newer Codex models. So this isn't a slide deck fantasy, it's already running. Here's why I think that 50% figure is the scary part if you're sitting in Nvidia's offices. Inference is the daily bill. Training a model is a big one-time expense, but serving billions of answers every single day, that cost never stops. If OpenAI can cut the cost of every ChatGPT reply and every Codex response by anything close to half, that changes the entire economics of the company, and it does it by leaning a little less on Nvidia's hardware to get there. Why OpenAI even bothered with this? Let me give you my honest read on the motivation here, because I think it's smarter than the headlines make it sound. OpenAI has a money problem, and it's not the one you'd guess. They pull in a lot of revenue, but they spend way more than that to run all of this. The compute bill is brutal. Brockman flat out told CNBC the company cannot get compute fast enough, and Hock Tan described the demand from his customers as simply insatiable. So when you're burning cash on compute and you literally can't get enough of it, building your own chip isn't a flex, it's survival. OpenAI has been almost completely dependent on Nvidia for years, and when you depend on one supplier for the thing that keeps your entire business breathing, you're at their mercy on both price and supply. Jalapeno hands OpenAI something it never had before: leverage. Even if they never fully replace Nvidia, just having a credible alternative changes every negotiation. I genuinely respect that move. It's the same playbook Apple ran when it dumped Intel and started building its own chips, and we all saw how well that worked out for them. So should Nvidia actually panic? Here's where I want to pump the brakes a little, because I'd rather be straight with you than just feed the hype machine. Is Nvidia in real trouble? My honest take is a little, yeah. but not in the dramatic way the scary headlines are selling. Let me give you the other side because it's important. Nvidia is still absolutely massive. In its most recent quarter, the company pulled in $81.6 billion in revenue, up 85% from the year before, with data center revenue up 92%. To put that in perspective, Nvidia sells more AI hardware in a single quarter than Broadcom expects to make from its entire AI chip business in a whole year. That's the size of the gap we're talking about. And then there's CUDA. CUDA is Nvidia's software layer, and it's the real moat. Pretty much every AI developer on the planet has built their tools to run on it, and Jalapeno doesn't support it. On top of that, this chip only handles inference. Training the actual frontier models, the genuinely heavy lifting, still runs on Nvidia, so in a lot of ways Jalapeno is additive as much as it's competitive. It quietly takes a slice of OpenAI's own inference work, while Nvidia keeps the rest of the pie. One analyst over at Wedbush made a point I thought was fair too. These custom chip programs usually take a few generations before they really get good. The first version is rarely the knockout punch, so treat this as round one, not the final bell. Why I still think it's bigger than the skeptics say. But here's the thing, and this is the part I genuinely find exciting. OpenAI isn't doing this in a vacuum, and they're far from the only ones. Google has its TP-Uz, Amazon has Trainium and Inferentia, Meta has MTIA, Microsoft has Maya, and now OpenAI has Jalapeno. Every single one of the biggest players in AI is quietly building its way out of needing Nvidia for absolutely everything. That's not a one-off, that's a trend, and trends are what actually move industries. And the timing tells a story all on its own. Nvidia's stock is down around 18% in 2026, even though the underlying business is putting up record numbers. Jensen Huang, Nvidia's CEO, literally called the stock slide a mystery he can't reconcile with the fundamentals. When the founder of a nearly $5 trillion company says that out loud, the market is trying to tell you something. It's pricing in this exact kind of competition, the slow erosion of Nvidia's pricing power, before it even fully shows up in the numbers. There's one more detail I love. OpenAI's head of hardware, Richard Ho, actually worked on Google's early TPU program before he joined, so the guy building OpenAI's chip helped build the original blueprint for this exact strategy. That's not a coincidence. That's someone who's done this before and knows for a fact it can work. Where I land on all of this? So here's my honest bottom line. Jalapeno is not an Nvidia killer, and anybody telling you it is selling you a headline. Nvidia is going to be just fine for a good while yet. The scale and the software lock-in are very real, but I do think this is one of those quiet turning points we'll look back on later and go, yeah, that's when it started shifting. The era where the biggest AI companies just stood in line and paid whatever Nvidia asked, that era is ending. And it's ending because the customers finally got big enough and smart enough to build their own way out. What gets me genuinely optimistic is what this means for the rest of us. If these chips really do cut inference costs anywhere near half, that saving flows downhill. Cheaper AI means cheaper products, faster responses, and more people getting access to tools that used to cost a small fortune to run. Brockman framed the whole thing as making compute more abundant, and for once I think the marketing actually matches reality. More competition in chips is good news for everyone who uses this stuff, which at this point is basically all of us. So that's where I stand. Nvidia should absolutely be paying attention. OpenAI just made a genuinely bold move, and the AI hardware game just got a whole lot more interesting to watch. If you got something out of this, do me a quick favor and smash that like button. It really does help the channel way more than you'd think. And go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already so you catch the next breakdown when this story develops. Because trust me, it will. I read through all the official announcements and the analyst takes so you don't have to, and there is a lot more coming in this space. Catch you in the next one.